So there's something that you have very likely forgotten, which the forgetting is interfering with you achieving the complete results that you really want. And so today I'll help to remind you of this so that you can unblock yourself and get easier, better results in your life. Just a reminder that this is Relax into Wholeness. It is a weekly meeting where we come together and explore topics, all of which are intended to support you in self-knowledge, because from my perspective, knowing yourself is the real aim of life. I mean, if you think about it, all the other things that you might achieve in life, all the things that you might obtain in life, they are all transient in nature, which is perfectly fine. That's their nature. So I'm not suggesting that's bad, but it is useful to recognize them as such, because if you think that those things are going to give you lasting satisfaction, then you will be disappointed. So again, I am not suggesting that those things are bad or that you should aim to give them all up, because it's probably not going to work for you. But it is useful to put this in perspective. So if you think about it, the one thing that is always here is you. Of course, who are you? That's the question. So I'm obviously not talking about those things which you might mistake for yourself, which are transient, right? I mean, because all the transient things are transient and therefore not permanent. But there is something which is here, which is not transient, and that is you. So to have knowledge of yourself is really the thing that can give the real satisfaction. And that's the ultimate intention with everything that I share and that we explore in these meetings. So today's meeting is no exception to that. And of course, we're only exploring one angle on things because that's all we can do at any one given time. So today we're going to focus on this thing that you have very likely forgotten. So this is part of a series that I started last week where I'm wanting to explore together with you some of the key things that might hold you back from achieving success in your conscious manifestation. So I'll give you the same background that I gave last week in regard to that. So if you think about it, in this life, oftentimes you have desires, goals, things you want to achieve, and some of those you can let go of, and it's useful to let go of the things that you can let go of. That probably indicates that those are not really your true desires. Those would be borrowed desires. Uh, but there are those things that you don't seem to be able to let go of, at least not easily. So unless you plan on successfully becoming a renunciate and going and living in the Himalayas, isolated from the rest of the world and completely abandoning all worldly attachments, then it's probably wise to have some relatively efficient ways of achieving and satisfying those desires that actually are yours. Because otherwise you're going to just struggle with them and not really achieve them, and then you get to the end of your life and you still have all kinds of unfulfilled desires, and then what? Then you're like, sign me up for another round. So better to satisfy those things that you can and let go of the things that you can. Um, so so conscious manifestation is an important skill to cultivate so that you can be efficient in these things. And so the basic formula for conscious manifestation, which most of you probably know, but just in case you don't, because it will be a useful background for what we're going to explore today, I'll just give you that. Is you have to know what you want, which most people don't. So that's the first step. You have to know what you want. And what you want is not what you don't want. This is, as I often point out, the big mistake that a lot of people make. They think that they want in terms of what they don't want. So, they think they might even formulate it as I want $1 million, but they don't really want to. What they're really thinking in the background is that they just want to be out of debt, or some whatever it is. So they just really are thinking in terms of what they don't want. So you have to get clear about what you do want, not what you don't want. Having clarity about what you don't want is of some use, but not a whole lot of use. It's much better to have clarity about what you do want. So that's the first thing. And then the law of attention is that whatever you put your attention on, that's where your energy goes. So if you consistently put your attention on one thing, then that one thing will consistently get the energy, which means that it will consistently grow. And so if you know what you want and you consistently put your attention on it, it will get the energy and therefore it will grow. Um, the problem then is that a lot of the time people struggle to consistently put their attention on the thing that they do want because there's a lot of interference. So that interference can show up in a variety of ways. One of the biggest, most easily accessible ways is limiting beliefs. So if you get clarity on what you want, you put your attention on it, and then you start to notice that you've got these beliefs that pop up. It's like, oh, I can't have that because, whatever the reasons are, I'm not good looking enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough. I don't have enough money yet. Nobody loves me. I'm too stupid. Whatever, all the beliefs. It's not available for somebody like me. Whatever. Those are limiting beliefs, right? So if you try to put your attention on something, but every time you try to put your attention on it, instead your attention gets diverted to some limiting belief, then your energy is not going to the thing you want. Your energy is going to the limiting belief. So that's how that works. So we want to release the limiting beliefs so that we can more consistently put the attention on the thing that we want. So a lot of the time, that's all that's needed. If you just do that much, I mean, to be honest, for a lot of things, just getting clarity on what you want and consistently putting your attention on it will allow you to manifest whatever that is. Uh, so if you just do a little bit of work each day, just a little bit, just asking yourself, what do I want? And just write down what you want. And then prioritize that so that you, day by day, you get clearer and clearer on what are the most important things that you want right now. And then just consistently put your attention on those one, two, maybe three things. Do not try and put your attention on more than that because then your attention gets too diluted. So then not enough energy will go to any one of the things in order to give you enough energy to actually become something. So keep it to one, two, maybe three things, top priorities. If you just consistently do that, a lot of the time that's sufficient. Uh, Strange as it might seem, well, a lot of people get good results with that, like magic. If you just have a short list, one, two, or three things, and you just read that every day, for a lot of people, they'll see magical results with that. I say magical, I mean, it's the law of attention. As I've said, though, a lot of the time there will be interference. And so then it's necessary to clear the interference because if you try to put your attention on it, but your attention gets diverted to something else, then your energy doesn't go to what you're trying to put attention on, it goes to the something else. So become aware of the limiting beliefs and then just have the intention to release them. There are other methods that one can use in order to release limiting beliefs, but that's not the focus today. So I'm just suggesting even just the intention. I choose to release that limiting belief. I release it now is something that can give you good results. So just being aware and then choosing to have the intention to let go. So a lot of the time that's sufficient. But then what I'm wanting to focus on today and in this series that started last week is what happened, what can you do or what's going on when you are following the formula. You have clarity about what you want. You've written it down. You're reading that, revising it, getting more clarity on it every day. You're identifying the limiting beliefs, you're releasing the limiting beliefs, and still the thing isn't manifesting. And it might be weeks, months, years, decades in some cases. So, what's going on then? And this is what often is not addressed in a lot of teachings. A lot of there's no shortage of coverage of the basic formula, lots of variations. People will get hung up on the minutia. Should you phrase it this way? Should you phrase it that way? How do you release the belief? Is it this? Is it that? Do you do tapping? Do you do the, breath work? What do you do? Right? Lots of coverage of the minutia, which I'm saying not that important. You pick one, go with it. They'll all work well enough. The question now is, what happens or what can you do when you've been following the formula and it's not giving the results? Now, maybe you've gotten results with some things, but not with this particular thing that you're trying to manifest. Maybe you've been able to manifest the money and the car and the house and the career and the spouse, but then when it comes to, you've got the knee pain, and the knee pain, you just cannot seem to do it's not moving. It's every day you're still suffering with the knee pain. So, or it could be anything like that. The thing that you're trying to manifest and it's not manifesting, despite the fact that you are sincerely doing your best to apply yourself to the basic formula. So when that happens, then there are a couple of things, I say a couple, handful of things that are worth looking at, because they're probably, one or more of them is probably at play. And fundamentally, we can see all of them through the lens of still interference. So just to bring it back so we can have clarity about this, always what's going on is that there is, at least at a certain level, there's this law of attention. So think about everything in our manifest experience is energy. So everything in your manifest experience is something that you perceive, you experience it, right? So there's nothing manifest that you don't experience. That's not the best way of saying that. What I mean to say is there's anything that you want is an experience. If you want $1 million, that you want the experience. If you want the vibrant good health, that's an experience. If you want the perfect relationship, that's an experience. It's all experience. So what you're actually talking about is experience. You want experience, and that experience consists of your five senses. So you see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. So everything that you want is fundamentally an experienced through the five senses, which is all energy. So five senses, it's all energy. So the seeing is energy, can be measured in terms of frequencies. The various colors are all frequencies. Light, it's all frequencies. Sound, all frequencies. Tactile sensation is frequencies. It's all of them are frequencies. It's all energy. So everything that we're dealing with in terms of what we are wanting and to experience is all energy. So we direct our energy through our attention. So whatever you want to manifest, you want to put the energy there. So as I pointed out, if there's interference, then your energy will not flow there. Your energy will go to wherever the energy is drawn. So like I talked about with the limiting beliefs. So if I want $1 million, but every time I try to put my attention on $1 million, what comes up are these limiting beliefs for why it's not possible for me, then my energy goes to those things instead of to the $1 million. Same with anything. I'm just using the example of $1 million. But any desire, any intention, if the attention is diverted because of interference to something else, then the energy is not going to the thing that you want, it's going to something else. So if you are not successfully manifesting what you want, then there's some kind of interference involved. And last week we looked at that through the lens of acceptance. This week, I want to look at it through the lens of love. Now, love is, boy, that's a loaded term. And as soon as I say love, I'm sure there's, 60 people here. There's 60 different ideas of what that means. So then we need to get clear on what are we really talking about? And what is this word love meaning in this context? Because I'm proposing that a misunderstanding of love or I'll just say misunderstanding. I think it's probably sufficient. Just say a misunderstanding of love is going to result in interference, which is going to block you from manifesting what you want. So, or it could. So let's say that maybe some things you could have a general misunderstanding of love and still you could manifest some things because maybe those things don't require so much energy. But then some things you're going to be blocked from manifesting because they require more energy than you can give to them because of your misunderstanding of love. So the misunderstanding of love is going to result in your energy being diverted, lost, squandered. You won't have the ability to direct the energy to what it is that you want because of the misunderstanding of love. So I'll also say that if you think about it, love is probably something, whether you want to admit it or not, is probably something pretty important to you. Uh, and so having a misunderstanding of love is going to cause you general problems in life as well as specific problems. So this is kind of this lesson or this exploration today can be helpful very broadly in your life and specifically when it comes to if there are specific things that you're wanting to manifest and you're not having success with them, then addressing this misunderstanding of love is going to help you specifically with those things. It's also going to help you generally in your life because this really touches on every aspect of your life because it's so important. So there are, it's such a, as with acceptance, this topic of love is so big, for lack of a better way of putting it, that I I have I don't want to pretend like I can possibly cover all of it, or that I even have all the understanding in order to cover all things there are to know about love. So today's exploration is necessarily limited to only what we're going to explore, but nonetheless, this exploration I think you're going to find is going to be very, very helpful. And but I'm pointing out that this is not meant to be comprehensive because I don't want you to think, oh, that's the whole lesson on love, and now I know all there is to know about it. I'm done with that. Rather, I invite you, as with acceptance, to let these be open inquiries in your life because they are so fundamental and so important. And they will continue, they're so rich, they will continue to bless you and give so much to you when you allow these to be living inquiries in your life. So I really recommend that. And when I say that, just so that it's clear what I mean just don't think that you know something. Instead, if there's some kind of insight that comes to you or revelation, then uh, accept that with gratitude. Allow yourself to put into practice things that that seem to be of benefit to you, and just keep an open mind that there's probably much that you still don't know, uh, and just be receptive to gaining more insight and clarity and receiving more of the richness when it comes to love and acceptance. But today's topic is love, so I'll focus primarily on that. So there are a couple of angles that I wanted to touch on here that I think are going to be relevant and helpful. But both of them really um, have to do, they will both benefit if we explore a little bit about what is love. So just notice what comes to mind for you. So there's not necessarily a right or a wrong with this because all we're, there's the word love, and that's just a sound, right? So in and of itself, it's just a sound. There's no meaning that is inherently attached to that sound. Uh, the meaning that you associate with that sound, therefore, is not the correct meaning, and the meaning that somebody else associates with it is not necessarily the wrong meaning, and it's not the other way around either. It's not that your meaning is the wrong meaning and their meaning is the right meaning. It's just that we've got a sound and we've got meanings. And the invitation here right now is to explore first, what are the meanings? What are the associations that you have with that sound? And is that giving you optimal results? And then we can start to explore, might there be other ways of understanding that might give you better results? So just notice again what comes to mind. I say the word love, and what comes to mind? No idea what comes to mind for you. Uh, I imagine for some people there probably are there may be some associations. I mean, I would assume with their experiences of what has been called love, and maybe what is portrayed as love in media, in stories and song and plays and movies and all the rest. So we've got, the and then love is love is such in English. It's so it has so much coverage, because we've got uh, like romantic love. We've got uh, love, familial love. We've got love, spiritual love. We've got love, and then love. We use love like somebody says, oh, I love pasta, right? So we've got lots of different uses of love. So so I'll just go. I'm going to propose something to you, which I think may be a well. First of all, so notice that a lot of the definitions. Well, before I say anything about that, let me just point out that there might be a divide between your ideal definition and understanding of love, and then your more like practical working definition of love. So of course, you have this very complex brain, and you got this part of your brain, I'm sure, like the rest of us, that knows the right answer. Oh, I know the right answer. Love, the right kind of love. I know what that is. That's this kind of thing. But then there might be these other parts of your brain, maybe like slightly less evolved, that like your working definition of love which shows up in your life as the, you know, maybe the things that you're not so happy with, maybe is a little different than that, right? So so I'm inviting an honest look. I'm not judging. I'm not saying, uh, only those people who have the right answer will graduate and get to move on to the advanced level. And there's not gonna be any tests or anything like that. It's just to notice what is, what is really conditioned in there. Like, yes, maybe in theory a good answer, but in practice, what actually is playing out in your life? Like, if you have uh, if you have challenges in relationships with others, and who doesn't, then you might question, well, what might there be something about my working definition of love? Not my, the correct answer that I think I know, but the conditioned working definition of love that maybe isn't working so well for me. Now, maybe I think probably for a lot of us, what we might find is that our working definition of love is it's kind of conditional. You find that a little bit? It's a little bit conditional, maybe a lot conditional. I mean, granted, a lot of us know probably we think, oh well, it shouldn't be conditional. We should love unconditionally. But let's be honest, how much of the love that so-called love that we experience or look for is really living up to that ideal? I mean, a lot of it's kind of conditional, isn't it? I'll love you if, and you'll love me if. So that's one of the things I think that can be maybe not working so well for us, is this idea of love as conditional. Now, please don't use any of this to beat yourself up. So none of this is meant to say, oh, shame on you, you're not loving unconditionally. It's not like that. Because be kind to yourself. I mean, we're all doing the best we can. So, and you don't have to be perfect. This is really just about bringing some awareness, because the awareness itself is healing. So don't put unreasonable demands on yourself that you should be anything other than what you are. Just inviting honest observation. So if you find, as I'm pretty sure you will, there's some sense of conditionality, then I'm proposing this might be interfering with you getting the complete results that you want in your life. Now, why would that be? Just because like maybe you have some goal, something that you want to achieve that seems completely unrelated to love. You say, look, I just I just want $1 million. I mean, what does that have to do with love? It has nothing to do with love. It's just money. I just want $1 million. And I'm doing all the things and still don't have the $1 million. So don't tell me about love. This is nonsense. I'm not here for this touchy-feely nonsense. I just want the $1 million. It's very practical, cold, hard cash. It has nothing whatsoever to do with love. Um, and yet, I'm proposing that it does, because um, on a very basic level, I've said everything is energy. So if you and certain everything that you want to every desire you want to manifest or fulfill requires however much energy it does. And that's there's too many variables at play for me to be able to know or predict what that would be, because we just, none of us really have eyes to see that kind of thing. So what the energy, the amount of energy that it would take for you to manifest $1 million and the amount of energy that it would take for me to manifest $1 million, it's different energy because there's a lot of other stuff behind the scenes that's going to be different. But I can just say that there's however much energy it takes for you to manifest whatever it is that you want is how much it takes. And it's going to be different for different things. So if there's something that you want to manifest that requires a certain amount of energy, then you need that much energy. And if you have anything less than that, you're not going to be able to successfully manifest it. So if your energy is being diverted away from whatever it is that you want so that you cannot sufficiently give enough energy to it to fully manifest it, then there you go. You're not going to succeed until you can change whatever it is that needs to be changed so that you can give enough energy to it. So here's the connection then with love, is that love is so important. And if you are having inefficient, unhelpful working definitions of love, then your energy is being siphoned off because we're all involved in exchanges in our lives every single day that somehow involve love, even if you think that's not true. So, um, so now let's look at a couple of scenarios so that this might be clearer to you. Okay, so we'll start with noticing uh, your. Okay, so notice that life is giving or happening unconditionally. So you know, however, I know different people have different ways that they prefer to think about this. If if you like to think about this in terms of God, then you can think about it in terms of God, that God is giving unconditionally. If you prefer to think of it as the universe, you can think of it as the universe is giving or expressing unconditionally or flowing unconditionally. You know, whatever word idea you prefer, you can utilize that here. But just notice that its nature is unconditional. You know, like the air is here. It's not, it's not conditional. It's not, if you are, if you are pleasing to me, then I'll give you air. Or, if you behave the way that I want you to behave, then you can have air. Or, only when you know your ABCs will you be allowed to have air. And this is just consider how uh, incredibly unconditionally generous life is. So, there's air and light and just unconditional life. Now, I understand that sometimes our minds uh, object to this. You say, but wait a second, what about this and what about that? I think there's certain, what about that time when I didn't seem to have this thing or that thing? Or what about those people who don't have those things? Or what about people who die? So we can certainly go looking for trying to find exceptions. But actually, if you just open to it, instead of looking for exceptions, what if you just were willing to just for a little bit? What if you were just willing to open to this possibility and just play with it, just explore it? That life is giving unconditionally. All the things that are happening, all the the electrons spinning and all of the stars and the all everything and everything, from the biggest to the smallest, everything, all of it is unconditional. Doesn't say only for the select few. Now, there might be, uh, you know, there are the nature of this life is that there's movement, so there's polarity. So sometimes it's day and sometimes it's night. So it's not that, day is always given. There sometimes it's day and sometimes it's night. Sometimes it's youth and sometimes it's old age. So there is this movement, but it's not conditional. So one problem then can happen is that we can project our conditional view of love onto God or the universe or life. And by doing that, and a lot of times this is somewhat subtle, we don't necessarily acknowledge this consciously, but nonetheless, just check it out and you might see that it's going on. So then we imagine that God or the universe or life is is conditional. And then we become fearful. What if I've displeased God? And I know some people will say, "Oh, this doesn't apply to me. I'm very evolved. I'm nothing like that. That would only be for very unevolved people. I'm nothing like that. That's so bizarre. I can't believe anybody would really do that." But just check it out. You might be surprised to find that some of that is going on for you. It would be because the thing is that we all grew up in this uh, cultural environment in which that's the norm. We were taught and conditioned to expect conditionality. And so naturally, we will tend to project that onto God or life or the universe. And that is going to create all kinds of interference. So it's really a very useful thing to notice. Just maybe you could just notice right now. Just feel into that. Is there any sense whatsoever that God or life or the universe is in any way conditional in regard to you? Like, might you get on the wrong side of God? Might you be displeasing to God? Does God play favorites? And if there's any bit of that, then it might be playing a significant role, much more significant than you thought, in terms of your overall experience, your sense of ease, and certainly your ability to consistently direct your attention at what you want or toward what you want. So, one thing that can be helpful, I'll give you two things, variations to play with. So the first one would be uh, just to experiment with, just try this out. Just you could say it out loud, or you could just silently within yourself, just uh, say, I love and accept myself as I am. And just notice, is there any is there any hesitation? Is there any resistance? Because if there is, then that's might be useful to, not might, it will definitely be useful to release that. So a very simple practice is just that. So just either out loud or silently, just say, I love and accept myself. And then just notice, is there anything that comes up? Any resistance? Might be, it might come up as an image, it might come up as like a little voice that says, you know, whatever thing it says, or it might come up as just this sort of feeling, like a clenching or a resistance or something. And just notice it. And then notice, can you can you just choose nonetheless to actually explore just for a moment what it might be like to actually really congruently experience loving and accepting yourself, like as if you were just trying on some new clothes, just to notice how it would be. You don't have to wear those clothes forever, but just notice what it would be like. Maybe just like a softness, an openness, a willingness, just a receptivity. You could just try it again. Just say either silently or out loud, I love and accept myself. And just notice again, is there anything that comes up in as a reaction to that? And and it's not to make that wrong or bad. It's just to notice it and then just notice, can you allow yourself just for a moment to actually experience what it would be like to love and accept yourself? Just just for a moment. Doesn't have You don't have to do anything more than that. It's just, could you allow yourself just for that one moment? And perhaps you might notice as you do that, maybe the third time that you've done this, maybe you notice some change in your automatic experience when you say, I love and accept myself. And maybe you don't notice anything. I mean, there there has to be some change. Maybe the change is subtle. Maybe the change is not subtle at all. Then perhaps you could notice some of that change. So that's one thing, that one very simple practice is just a practice. Just I love and accept myself. And then just notice what happens. Is there any automatic reaction? It's not to make that wrong or bad. It's fine. If it happens, it happens. We don't need to fight with that or shame ourselves or anything, but just to notice it and then also to allow yourself to just for a moment experience what it might be like to actually love and accept yourself. just as you are, just as I am now. I love and accept myself. Just try that on just for one moment. See what happens. I think you might discover that it's quite surprisingly effective. So that's in that's one aspect of this is if we project, then if we project that we project our the conditionality that we've been trained that's to normalize. If we project that onto God or life or the universe, then that's going to create this habitual automatic response in us that's going to be activated in so many situations in life that then will drain the energy so that we don't have sufficient energy to direct toward what we want. Uh, so I gave one very simple practical exercise that you could explore that could help with that. I'll give you another variation. It's a little bit more sophisticated. Don't think that because it's more sophisticated, it's more effective. It's not necessarily true, but just because some different things will appeal to different people, I'm just going to give you a variation that could be useful to explore. So you could notice, and this exercise that I'm going to give you right now, you could do it generally. You could also do it in specific contexts. But we'll do it generally at first. So you could think about whatever the so if there's some entity that you however you conceive of that entity. So if you conceive of the entity as God, or if you conceive of the entity as the universe, or you conceive of the entity as life with a capital L, or whatever, it doesn't have to be those constrained to just those three options. It could be whatever that entity is that you perceive that you have some kind of relationship with. And if you don't perceive that there's any entity that you have any relationship with, then I guess you wouldn't use this exercise. But if there's any entity that you perceive you have a relationship with, then choose, and maybe there's multiple, you can just choose one, and then just notice how, how does that entity feel about you? And here this trying to get the honest, conditioned working response, not what you think is the right answer. Because you might say, well, I know God loves me unconditionally, but is that what is that the working response? Is that what actually comes up? Or is there actually a conditioned working response of something else? Is like God disappointed in you? Whatever it is, just we're wanting in this exercise, just wanting to invite that, just to notice how does that entity feel about you? So I'll say, God, just to give an example of what I'm talking about, let's say, okay, God is disappointed in me. So then I can ask myself, when I am aware or when I perceive that God is disappointed in me, how do I feel? Uh, I'll give an example. So some might say, well, then I feel ashamed. I don't know why there's a whiteboard. Somebody somehow opened a whiteboard. Don't do that, please. I'm sure there's some option I can turn off somewhere. Please refrain from turning on whiteboards. Um, if, but maybe they say, okay, God is when I perceive that God is disappointed in me, I feel ashamed. then I can ask myself, well, how would I like to feel? So, well, maybe I'd like to feel uh, at ease and supported. I'm just giving an example. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever comes up, but I'm just giving the example. So then I can go through those same, repeatedly go through the same cycle through the same points of view. So start over again at now, how does God feel about me? Um, and just whatever comes up. So maybe I say, well, now uh, God, God's a little bit more like God's 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 wanting God's like rooting for me. God's on my side. God's wanting the best for me. Okay. When I perceive that God is rooting for me and wanting the best for me, how do I feel? I might say, well, I feel a little better than before, but I still feel like, like I'm not enough. And then how would I like to feel? Well, I'd like to feel that I am enough. So then can start over first from the first perspective again. So now how does God feel about me? Uh, now maybe I feel like, oh, God feels like uh, just like tender-hearted and really sweet toward me. And then, when I perceive that God feels tender-hearted and sweet toward me, how do I feel? And maybe I say, well, now I feel a little bit more like also kind of open-hearted. Uh, so can continue with this process until that, the answer to how do I feel is seems optimal. So this exercise can also help to clear up those conditioned, unhelpful, limiting projections. So those are two variations on some practical things that you might explore that can help you to uh, relieve yourself of unhelpful, limiting uh, beliefs and perceptions regarding love, things that you might struggle to make fully conscious by going about it a different way, but these ways can be very effective and can really free you up from a lot of stuff. Uh, so that's one angle is projections of conditionality onto God or life or the universe. Then there's also how you uh, do love in the rest of your life. Now, here I want to again suggest that be kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself and be generous with yourself. So don't beat yourself up because you discover that you have patterns of conditionality in how you express and experience love in your interactions with others in your life. Of course you do. We all do. It's okay. I'm At the same time, I'm not suggesting that you should strive for that and say, well, that's fantastic. Let's have more of that. But just rather to take maybe what I'm inviting is to become more aware and just at the same time be really gentle and patient with yourself because we all are where we are. Like we are living in this world where we have been patterned to be conditional in our love, our experience and expression of love. So be gentle with yourself about that. And it can be useful just to become aware of that and then question whether that's actually serving you in what you really want. And through that awareness and questioning, you might start to allow yourself to open up to something that's more 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 open, less conditional. Don't try to force it, because if you try to force it, it probably won't work very well. So just let it be a gentle, ongoing exploration. So you could just notice, for example, is there anybody, maybe you could think about some person in your life who you have some challenges with. Uh, and maybe somebody who you would say that you love and you experience some challenges. And then just notice, is do you have conditionality in your working definition of love in regard to this person? And this is not to shame yourself or to make it wrong or bad, but just to notice it, just to notice, do you have conditionality, and is that working well for you? And my proposal is that when you can see it, then you'll probably recognize it's not really working that well for you, because you'll start to see that when there's conditionality, then it's draining your energy. So either consciously or unconsciously, you seek to manipulate others and situations so that they will conform with the conditions that you've defined, in which you say that you can give or receive or experience love. If you believe I can only love this person if or when, then either consciously or unconsciously or some combination of the two, you're going to be working to manipulate the other people and or situations so that those conditions will be met, because you really want to experience and express love. So as long as that conditionality is there, then you're going to be compelled to try and manipulate others and conditions to match with what you believe is necessary in order to give and receive love. Well, that's going to require a lot of your energy. So that's energy that then you don't have to direct to the things that you want. I mean, obviously, I say obviously, I don't know if it's obvious to you, but it seems obvious to me that this would have a direct impact, a direct, probably unwanted negative impact in regard to the specific relationship or relationships. So hopefully that's clear. And therefore, the more awareness that you bring and the more willingness that you have to gently, patiently, lovingly, with kindness and compassion for yourself, start to explore letting go of some of the unhelpful conditions and allow yourself more unconditional love. Not to place unrealistic or unreasonable demands on yourself that you should do anything, but just gently, slowly, patiently to invite that exploration. As you do so, I'm pretty sure you'll find that overall things start to be much better for you in terms of that relationship or those relationships that are involved. And indirectly, this will also influence all the other things that you want to achieve in your life. Because when your energy is not being siphoned away into trying to manipulate people and situations, then you have that energy that you can choose to direct toward what you want. So that's what I think. I think that's what I wanted to explore. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Hopefully this gave you some things that you can work with. Because that was my intention, is that it would be something that would, it's a very big topic. It's very, in some ways, it's very complex. And yet I wanted to just try and approach it in a simple and practical way. So hopefully I've succeeded in that and given you a couple of simple tools that you can work with so that you can get results. Um, Keep in mind that although just receiving this information, just being here, invariably will have some result in your life, uh, somewhat unlikely that you would experience a very significant and persistent change as a result of merely attending this meeting. Not saying it couldn't happen, but much more likely that you would experience a persistent positive change in your life if you were to actually work with these things yourself and explore them in an ongoing way. So that's why I've invited this as a living inquiry, and I've suggested a couple simple, practical exercises that you could explore. If you explore those on a regular basis, just for a few moments daily or every other day or every third day, but if it's consistent, persistent, ongoing, then I believe that you will notice very significant and persisting, lasting, positive transformation in your life. So I invite and encourage you to test that out and to be really gentle with yourself, as I've suggested, because uh, I think that's usually a good idea, and particularly in regard to this, because uh, it would be counterproductive to be unkind to yourself. Right? I mean, if you say, "Oh, I'm such a failure. I can't believe that I have I've been doing all this and I'll never succeed, and what a loser I am," and then that would be counterproductive. Or if you try to take this really hard line approach and you say, "I should be perfect. I'm going to let go of all conditionality now and forever," then that's awfully rigid and probably unrealistic. So I am really honestly suggesting something that's just gentle, patient, be good to yourself, be willing to show up for yourself in a good way long term. Maybe you could recognize that you are in this for the long term. It's not just about, you know, getting getting the beach bod for the summer. It's like this is forever. This is you. This is to to cultivate the right relationship. It's it's really, really important. So be patient and and maybe loving. See if that's possible. So that's what I wanted to share today. I sincerely believe go so far as to say I know that when you put that into practice consistently, you will see results. If you have questions about any of that, of course, and you're here live, then happy to hear from you. We're going to do the group coaching momentarily. For those who will watch this on YouTube, of course, you will not have the opportunity to attend this group coaching session because it's only available for people who attend live. If you would like to attend live, then you certainly could, and you can get that information for how to join live by signing up on my website. And so the way that works is you go to my website, joeylott.com. And at present, when you do that, you'll see on the homepage there's an opportunity to join to get the free ebook that covers 5 of the fundamental laws that govern creation. And not only do you get that free ebook when you sign up, but also you will get an email sent to you automatically that will include the information so that you can join these meetings live. So all you have to do is just go to my website, joeylott.com, sign up to get the ebook. You'll also get the information to join the meeting live. So the link for that will be in the description on YouTube. And so that's it for this part of the meeting. So I'm going to sign off for those watching on YouTube. Bye for now, and blessings to you.